Also, we have a web page. So if you would like to access anything, for example, if you want to see the full bios of any of our speakers and presenters, if you want to download our agenda, Zoom backgrounds, find additional resources and everything, you can find them via our website, and someone will be putting the link in the chat. All right, so now we are going to get introduced to our wonderful, wonderful Power to the Students with Disabilities Planning Committee. So, all right, I'll hand it off to Jewel.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It is a privilege and a pleasure to be with you all this morning. Welcome to the Power to the Students with Disabilities Transfer Experience webinar. We are really excited for you all to join us, as Ariel shared and as Alfred has shared his sentiments as well. My name is Jewel Bourne. I'm one of the program coordinators here at the Center for Community College Partnerships. I serve currently as our program coordinator for Los Angeles Valley College, so shout out to any of the Monarchs in the room, shout out to everyone, but particularly the Monarchs. I also have the privilege of serving as the communications co-coordinator, which is basically just I co-facilitate and co-manage our social media platform. So if you're not already following us, please do. Shameless plug for our social media accounts. A little bit about myself. I am a first generation college student, first in my family to go on and get a master's degree, and first in my family to really pursue higher education in general. I transferred from Santa Monica College to UCLA in 2013, where I earned my bachelor's degrees in English and Gender Studies. I also was a scholar prior to transferring to UCLA, so CCP scholar, very proud. And then once I graduated from UCLA, I went on and got my master's degree from California State University, Northridge, and I'm currently a rising second year PhD student in higher education at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. I'm really interested in continuing to do this work to make sure that transfer students and students who are historically minoritized and excluded are continuing to gain access and equitable access to higher education and pursue their educational goals. A little bit about myself is I am also an individual who identifies as having a disability and a chronic illness. So this space has been a long time coming for us. And we're really excited for this to be the first webinar and first programming that we're doing to really center the experiences of students with disabilities. So I am really stoked to be here. We'll be learning a little bit more about me during the day as we share and share in community with one another. So thank you all for being here. And it's really, really exciting to be sharing space with you all. So thank you. And I will go ahead and hand it off to Ariel. She wants to do a longer introduction.
Yes, thank you so much, Jewel. So again, my name is Ariel, pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm the program coordinator for CCP over at LA Southwest and West LA College. So shout out to the folks in the building who are from those colleges. I transferred from Pasadena City College, and I actually was a peer advisee as a student there in the CCP program. I transferred to UCLA, and I worked as a peer advisor with CCCP, and then I graduated and I got my bachelor's degree in psychology, and now I'm working back over here as full-time staff. And again, just really excited to be here. Just like Joel said, excited to be sharing space with you all. This has been a very necessary program, very necessary webinar, and I'm really happy that we are able to have this and for this to be the first year. And I'm just excited. And I'll hand this off to Iridia.
Hello, everyone. Hi, so my name is Iridia Ibar. I'm a new CCCP peer advisor. I also went to LAVC, but I did go to LACC, so go Cubs and go Monarchs. I'm majoring in Chicano and Central American Studies and minoring in education. And just like everyone else, I'm really excited to be here. I'm really happy that we have this space. And yeah, I can't wait to hear more from everyone. And I believe Ryan is here.
Ryan is actually having a little bit of technical, I'm not sure if he's here yet. He just sent me a text message saying he's having a little bit of technical difficulty, but as soon as he joins us, we'll have him introduce himself.
All right, so now we're going to introduce our wonderful full-time staff team. So I'm just gonna go with who I see first. So Aurelia.
I felt that coming. Good morning, everyone. My name is Aurelia Reimer. I am the STEM program coordinator for CCCP. A little about myself as well. I also was a scholar in the CCCP program. So I attended Santa Monica College. And as an anthropology major, transferred to UCLA as an anthropology BS major. I'm also pre-med and I graduated in 2019. I left for a bit, came back, and now I'm the STEM program coordinator for CCCP. So if there's any STEMmies in the house, please follow us on Instagram at CCCP_STEM. We are planning some STEM related content for the fall. So please keep a lookout for any information regarding that, and welcome.
Thank you, Aurelia. Blanca?
I saw that coming too after my fellow Corsair. Good morning, everyone. My name is Blanca Alcantara Hershey. I'm the office coordinator as well as the communications co-lead along with Jewel. I'm just very glad to be here on this very first, like Ariel said, inaugural webinar. I hope all of you have a great time, and I'm just glad to be in this space, very needed space. Like I said, I transferred from Santa Monica College to UCLA. I graduated in 2014. While I was at UCLA as an undergrad, I was part of and one of the co-chairs of IDEAS, the support group for undocumented students. Then once I graduated, I continued to do more work around immigrant rights. And then I came back to the nest, and ever since I've been, continuing to do the work with transfer students. So I'm just very glad to continue this work, as I am the product of CCCP, and I can attest to how pivotal it is to have a program like this to help students and guide them. So thank you all, and welcome to your space and your community.
Thank you, Blanca. Okay, and then next, Claudia. Actually, I think Claudia might be also having some issues.
Yeah, I'm having issues. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Good morning, everyone. My name is Claudia Salcedo. I'm the CCCP Administrative Coordinator, and I've been with CCCP for the last 10 years. A little bit about myself. I'm a proud Chicana from the city of Indio, California, and I am daughter of immigrants from Michoacan. I'm the second of 7 children. I'm first generation college student. I attended UCLA almost 20 years ago. And so while I was not a transfer student, definitely a strong transfer advocate. I graduated in 2005 with a major in Chicano Studies and a minor in Policy Affairs. And I also hold a degree from CSUN a master's degree in Chicano Studies. And most recently in 2018, I received my doctorate degree in education, also doing transfer research. And so I'm happy to be here sharing space with you all, and congratulations to the planning committee. Thank you all.
Thank you, Claudia. And then Santi, who I almost missed because his name is CCP Zoom. Is Santi there?
I'm just muted. Sorry. As usual, I forget to unmute myself. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to the planning committee. You should all feel very proud of what is going on today, because this is the first time that we're intentionally focusing on the experiences of students with disabilities from community colleges, and to really try to create a pathway for students to ensure that they have that pathway towards a university like UCLA. I mean, we do hope that you select UCLA. It's a great campus, but ultimately we want you to be wherever you are going to find community, find support, and find the best environment so that you can be the best version of yourself. Again, kudos to the planning committee for just doing this and ensuring that this community is being built up as well. My name is Santiago Bernal. I'm the assistant director. I'm myself an immigrant from El Salvador. came during the 80s, probably before most of you were born. And again, just I definitely here to learn as well, because it's important for us to understand and hear from your experiences. And as someone who just in late in life has started to develop chronic illnesses as well, I have had a hard time accepting that. So I think being here is also important just for me as well. So I want to say thank you to everyone.
Thank you, Santi. I'm sorry, Frank.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Frank Castorena Jr. I am the Program Coordinator here at the Center for Community College Partnership, or CCP, or Triple CP, however you want to call us. I oversee the partnerships at Los Angeles Mission College and Los Angeles Trade College. A little bit about me. I am a first-gen proud transfer student from East Los Angeles College. I transferred to UCLA and double majored in sociology and Chicano studies. After getting my 2 BAs, I applied to grad school. I ended up at the other school to get my master's. I got my master's in social work, and I am now back as a full-time staff at CCP. Please ask questions like Alfred mentioned. Please get emails, network, build community. Thank you for being here once again, and enjoy the webinar.
Thank you, Frank. And Gabby.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for taking time and being here today. I am very excited to be here in community with you all. And first, I want to thank, the planning committee for, this amazing and informative webinar. As they mentioned, there's a lot of resources that they prepare for you. And a little bit about myself. My name is Gabriela Abraham, and I work for CCCP as a program representative. I am a first-generation, non-traditional parenting student who transferred from Los Angeles Valley College to UCLA a long time ago in 2014. I double major in Chicano studies and Spanish community and culture. And I'm also a product of CCCP because I was a scholar 2 years prior to transferring to UCLA, and I was also a peer advisor when I was a student at UCLA. A first-generation immigrant who wasn't documented for more than 20 years, and I went back to school after 20 years. My daughter and I, we were part of the program at the same time, and we both transferred to UCLA and graduated in 2017. I want to thank you for being here again, and enjoy the webinar.
Thank you, Gabby. And some of our other full-time staff were unable to be here today, but they do send their love and congratulations and everything. I'll just mention them really briefly. Beto is our Pierce coordinator. Perla is our LA City and our Harbor City College coordinator. And then Chelly is our ELAC program coordinator. So thank you to all of them as well. All right.
Hi, everyone. Now I'll be reading Triple CP's land acknowledgement. The Center for Community College Partnerships at UCLA acknowledged the Tongva peoples as the traditional land caretakers of the Los Angeles Basin and South Channel Islands, and are grateful to have the opportunity to work for the indigenous peoples in this place. As a land-grant institution, we pay our respects to ancestors, elders, and our relatives and relations from past, present, and emerging. And then we will also be dropping a link in the chat where you can see what indigenous peoples land you're on. Thank you.
And just thank you, Jasmine. Just a quick interruption. We did want to give space and opportunity for our fourth committee member to introduce themselves, Ryan Ostengo, who has joined us. So Ryan, if you want to do a quick introduction of yourself before we proceed.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Ryan Ostengo. I'm also from East Los Angeles College, transferred to UCLA, graduated with my English degree. I'm also disabled, so having this space right here is very, very special to me. So thank you, everybody, and thank you, CCCP and the Planning Committee.
Thank you, Ryan. All right, so we'll go ahead, Ariel.
Oh, no, I just wanted to say that we are also issuing a trigger warning for the next few slides because there might be some very triggering content that is included in these slides. So if you wanted to turn off your camera, turn off your mic, or if you needed to step away, you can go ahead and do so. So I'll hand it back over to Joel.
So at this point, we would like to read our statement on Black Lives Matter. So CCP statement on Black Lives Matter to our students and colleagues in the Black community and across the diaspora. We stand with you. You're valued and an important member of our campus and off-campus family. We all need to acknowledge the challenges and work to change them. We must work together as people of color and allies, people who are concerned about our future, to eliminate the systemic disparities. We take a stand today and always because Black Lives Matter.
So our statement on hate against the API community is that CCCP condemns hateful acts of violence, harassment, and rhetoric targeting Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, and Desi Americans. Since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, there has been an alarming increase in the discrimination and violence perpetrated on the APIDA community. These acts of violence are nothing new. We are disturbed by these xenophobic, racially motivated attacks, and CCCP stands in solidarity with all of our students, colleagues, and community partners who experience marginalization and threat.
All right, so I'll be reading the UCLA transfer student and COVID-19 pandemic message. In terms of the pandemic impact, death rate for Latino people is 21% higher, and for Black people is 9% higher than statewide. Case rate for communities with a median income of $40,000 is 37% higher than statewide. Community college students have the largest negative impact, particularly men of color, who have experienced largest enrollment drops. In terms of UCLA's return to campus, for fall 2021, close to 80% of courses would be offered in person, as well as most labs. UCs will require anyone accessing UC facilities or in-person UC programs to be fully vaccinated prior to the fall term. UCLA is planning for on-campus housing this fall and expects to offer housing to first-year transfers and to a higher percentage of second-year transfers. Los Angeles already mandated masks, which was in effect July 17th.
So again, we just wanted to, again, as we do these, we also want to be talk about sort of what CCP is founded on. And one of the main tenets that we are founded on and principles and theories is critical race theory. So we use it, critical race theory is a tool that comes out of legal scholarship. And just a note on theory, as Bell Hooks has said, theory isn't everything that we do. It's just a way of organizing ideas and thoughts that are based on fact. So we are founded and rooted in critical race theory in education, and we use it as a tool to explore disparities along the community college educational pipeline. I'll just go into a little bit about it. So the centrality of race and racism, understanding that race is a part of everything that we do. It's who we are, and it's a part of our everyday lives and what we experience. Challenging the dominant ideologies, value of experiential knowledge. So recognizing, right, that the things that happen in our lives that have value and have meaning, and they influence and impact the way we experience, particularly in this case, the university and educational settings, and particularly higher educational settings. And again, I'm doing a very, very quick run through. It's a very expansive theory, and doing just a groundwork and a framework setting for this. So again, interdisciplinary and intersectionality. So basically the way we experience things are all interconnected. The way we experience race, the way we experience gender, the way we experience our social economic status, the way we experience disability and ability are all a part of our lived experiences, and they matter, and they have value, and they have contributions to the way we experience things and the way that we understand the world and make meaning of things. And lastly, a commitment to social justice. And I think that in some respects is a little bit self-explanatory, but right, the way in which we serve, right, and the way in which we prioritize the needs and the experiences of historically excluded populations. And again, to learn more about CRT, there is a article that we'll talk a little bit about in the foundations of, that's posted on the registration website that folks should have received, but it's called Whose Culture Has Capital? Critical Race Theory Discussion of Community Cultural Wealth by Dr. Darayosa. And I will hand it over to Ariel to talk a little bit more about community cultural wealth. And just gonna breeze through these slides really quick.
All right, thank you, Joel. I'm also going to do a really, really brief overview of this one too, but basically for community cultural wealth, Dr. Tarayoso describes this as the different knowledges, the skills, experiences that people of color or oppressed peoples use to survive, resist racism, resist systems of oppression or other forms of oppression, resist ableism. And it is also a direct challenge to the dominant ideology that there's only wealth and richness, that it's found in typically or predominantly white, cis, male abled communities. So for example, with social capital, finding that wealth in your culture with being able to connect with the different professors, programs, departments, and everything that might support you and empower students with disabilities. So for example, finding those accommodations on campus for your classrooms, finding your DSPS programs as well and connecting with them. Linguistic capital, some of you might be bilingual, you might code switch, so navigating spaces like that as well. And then also resisting capital, so being able to resist such a world that is completely ableist and living throughout the world where everything is predominantly for able-bodied people as well.
Okay, and now for some of our community guidelines. For Connecticut, respect the cyber community. Please remember to keep your microphone muted and click the speaker view. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to utilize the chat feature. Questions will be answered during the Q&A portion. And remember to step in, step back, one diva, one mic, challenge ideas, not the messenger, and please do not be afraid to ask any questions. I'll also be going over our agenda for today. So we have a lot going on today. So starting, well, we already started at 10:30. We had our welcome and our introduction. Up next, we're gonna have our keynote address, followed by a Q&A, followed by closing and a raffle. We'll be having 2 raffles today. And then we'll be having our break. After that, we're gonna have our research presentation, a student alumni discussion, and after that, we'll be having a closing and a raffle. So we'll have a day full of information, resources, and fun.
So we are a little bit ahead of schedule, so just want to be mindful of that, which in CCP world sort of doesn't always happen. So we are a little bit ahead of schedule. So, but just wanted to make a couple of other quick announcements. We forgot to mention this, and our apologies. If We are streaming live on YouTube, and that is our means of providing also closed captioning. So if you are in need of closed captioning or want to utilize that service, please go over to our YouTube. We'll also drop the link in the chat in just a minute for you all to be able to access that if that's something that you would like to take advantage of. But in the interest of our keynote speaker is here with us this morning already. So Dr. Salona, if you're ready, we can go ahead and move right into our presentation.
That sounds great.
Okay, thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course. I know. So it's rare to get something that's ahead of schedule, right?
Right? So I'll just go ahead and do a brief introduction of Dr. Caitlin Salone. Dr. Caitlin Salone is the academic administrator for UCLA Disability Studies. She identifies as neurodiverse and has ADHD, and it was a transfer student from NorCal to UC Santa Barbara. So go transfers. To have transfer students represented in this space is super important. That's the goal and the priority. So we're really excited to hear about your experiences. Her professional experiences include serving as a special education teacher, as well as she recently completed her PhD at UCLA. And so we're really excited to have you join us, Dr. Salone, and to share your experience and your wisdom and your knowledge. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for the warm welcome. It's exciting that this webinar is happening. It's exciting that this opportunity and these programs exist. And I wish I would have known about or had access to similar programs when I was coming through the pipeline. So yeah, welcome to the Power to the Transfer Students with Disabilities webinar. We're so glad that you're all here. My name is Dr. Caitlin Salone, as Jewel mentioned, and I identify as neurodiverse. I have ADHD. I was also a former transfer student, as was already mentioned. And I had a pretty non-linear path to higher education. I am going to now give my image description, which is a form of access. And so I'm sitting here. I am a white woman with brown hair and a low bun. I have a part down the center. I'm wearing large rim tortoise glasses and a kind of a looks like a watercolor button-down shirt with black and pastel purples and pinks. And I am in front of the beautiful Zoom background that was provided by CCCP. And it's kind of pastels. It looks like a cotton candy sky with light purple, lavender, light pink, and light blue. And I'm just super grateful to be with you all today. I'm super grateful that you're all here attending this webinar. It's really useful to have the knowledge that you need to move forward, and knowledge is power. So I am also currently at my parents' house in Orangevale, California, and this is kind of where it all began. I came here to visit about a week ago for a few days, and turns out my stepdad was diagnosed with COVID. He got a positive COVID test. He also has dementia. So we've all been kind of on lockdown, or very much on lockdown for the last week or so. So yeah, I'm sitting here where it all began, and I'm going to share a little bit about my story with you. And then I'm going to get into a little bit about, disability studies at UCLA, what it is, and then also share with you just kind of some information about, my path and my journey and what it's taught me so far. Reminding everyone that, everyone's experience is unique and different. And my experience as a white woman, I'm also a bisexual white woman, is very different than others who have different intersectional identities. So my story is my story, and each of your stories are your own as well. So I'm currently the academic administrator for disability studies here at UCLA. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the field, which I was only a few years ago, disability studies takes a critical approach to understanding disability by examining the way that we construct normalcy and what we think of as normal in our cultures and our societies, and the way that we construct disability, and the socio-political and cultural structures that serve to mitigate or perpetuate ableism all around us. And ableism is a funny thing, because once you start recognizing ableism, you can't stop seeing it everywhere we look, and feeling it everywhere we go. So the impact of intersectional identities also comes up a ton within the disability studies spaces. And we examine a lot of things that really serve to compound the disabled experience and so much more. So disability studies is really about challenging the view of disability as an individual deficit or defect, which it commonly can be conceived of as. And it can, oftentimes it's thought that disability can only be remedied through medical intervention or rehabilitation by experts, and I'm doing air quotes here, and other service providers. And my air quotes signify that, we are experts on our own bodies and our own minds, and we can utilize other supports and expertise. And that's all very valuable in many cases. But at the end of the day, our bodies are our guides. And if we can, introspect a little and really get in tune with our bodies, which many of you already may be, we can learn a lot about ourselves, and we can identify a lot through our intuition about what's going on. So disability studies also is about, instead of relying solely on that medical model of disability, it really explores other models and theories that examine social, political, cultural, economic, and all those factors that define disability and help determine personal and collective responses to differences. And the reality is that, as human beings, we're all incredibly diverse and different. And there's not a single one of us that you could, put on a chart and map every single attribute of that person that would be the same as another person, right? We are all incredibly diverse and different and distinct. And through our challenges and the things that make us different and the things that make us unique, through those teach us things and give us opportunities to learn and grow and understand the climate and the spaces around us, and really just keep teaching us new things about who we are and the culture in which we live in, and what needs to change, really. So disability studies as a field, it really works to destigmatize disease, illness, differences, including those that can't be measured or explained by biological science. And let's see. Oh, sorry. I'm not sure about attendance, but I'll let someone answer in the chat there. There was a question in the chat about attendance. So in addition, disability studies, and I'm giving you this overview because disability studies is a field that's emerging. It's relatively new and not many people know about it. And it helps so much in understanding our own disabled experience and the reasons we've struggled so much, oftentimes within the context of the spaces in which we exist. So disability studies as a field, it gives us the language and the theoretical frameworks to discuss these complex issues related to disability, allowing us to then re-envision and work towards recreating a society that values, that includes, that supports, that cares about all people, and really prioritizes all people, no matter what identities they may hold. And so, that's what we really want, right? We want a society that is going to help those of us that don't feel like we really fit in the mold to exist and thrive, not just exist, but thrive, right? We have a right to thrive. And what's beautiful about this program and about the different organizations and structures that we have at UCLA is that we are starting to see things emerge and grow and develop so that we can have a disabled community that's empowered, that's seen as strong and valuable members of our community, because we are. So we may benefit from some, medical interventions and supports. Of course, I definitely do. But at the end of the day, we're not broken. We're not in need of repair. We're in need of restructuring our society so we can all fit. So like Jewel mentioned earlier, I was a non-traditional transfer student who at the time had not yet been diagnosed with ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I went, right out of high school, I went to the first school that would accept me just to get out of Dodge and move away from home. It was time. I had to go. I love my family very much, and I loved them very much back then, but it just was not, just wasn't working. So as I mentioned before, I grew up outside of Sacramento in a small rural suburb called Orangevale. And I was, at the time going through school, didn't really have much support in high school from anybody on my high school campus in terms of direction. And I was really unaware of the importance of SATs, so much so that, if I'm being honest, I showed up hungover to my SAT test. I really didn't know that it was important. I was unaware that I needed to study for it. That really wasn't happening around me very much, and just didn't know that was something that you were supposed to do. And even though I knew that I wanted to go to college, I didn't know the ropes. I didn't know what the processes were to arrive there. I was the oldest sibling, so at my mom's house, where I'm currently located, I had 3 younger sisters, one who has cerebral palsy and an intellectual disability, and then 2 younger sisters and they all range from 7 to 10 years younger than me. And then at my dad's house, and he lives relatively close, I had also 3 younger siblings who ranged from 8 to 14 years younger than me. And so I was the oldest. I was the first one going through this process. And I heard earlier, like many of you might be first gen, and many of you might be the first ones in your families going to college. And it's a really, really empowering thing to do. And it's really beautiful that there are supports in place to support us through that process. So I ended up getting in, despite my SAT scores, ended up getting into San Francisco State University, Chico State, and the University of San Francisco. And that was where I definitely wanted to go, but at $40,000 a year wasn't really feasible. So that was a little bit of a wake-up call. I settled on SF State, where I'd never visited. I didn't know anyone going there. I didn't even know like what SF State offered. I just knew that it was somewhere other than here. And so I went. And my first year, I failed miserably. I didn't understand the rules of higher education. I didn't know that if I stopped attending classes, I should probably drop them. Otherwise, I would get an F. I didn't understand the system. And looking back, it is very clear that my ADHD contributed to my disorganization and last second decision making and all the things that come along with that. I also didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't know that help was available to me. I didn't know that help was something that would be beneficial or something that I was allowed to ask for. I had no idea also how my actions at that time might affect my future. I also fell extremely ill that year. I was chronically ill that entire year, and had, thought I had, autoimmune disease and different things like that, and was just trying to figure out what was going on. And when I take a step back, I also think perhaps it was due to the stress of the undiagnosed ADHD, the stress of moving to a new city, the stress of figuring out new systems and feeling like I didn't know what to do and know what to do to figure out what to do. So though I made some friends at my retail job during that time, and I had some good experiences, academically, it was a completely different picture. And so I left the year having earned 19 semester units total out of the entire year. Again, I failed 2 classes simply because I didn't show up and didn't know I was supposed to drop, or didn't know how to drop, or forgot to drop. I wasn't happy. I hadn't forged the college community that I was looking for. It wasn't the college experience I dreamed of or desperately hoped for. And I knew I wouldn't thrive there if I continued on that path. And that was a really hard decision to make, but I did end up making the difficult decision to move back home so I could ultimately transfer somewhere else. So I moved back home, and I knew that was going to be very challenging. I ended up going to Sierra College, which is a community college in Roseville, California, outside of Sacramento. I really enjoyed my experience at community college. It was wonderful, honestly, and it was really much more supportive than I had in my first year. I had visited friends at UC Santa Barbara my freshman year of college, and that was it. I saw that and I knew like that was where I wanted to be. that feeling you get when you're somewhere or you see something or you hear about a program or you see somewhere you want to travel, that feeling you get inside that lights you up and makes you realize, oh, this is it. This is where I'm going. That's the feeling I had when I was in Santa Barbara at UCSB. The college campus, the community, the surrounding area, it was just everything my soul needed. And so I followed that. I listened to my inner guidance and I followed that. And if I'm going to leave you with anything today, it's to do just that. Follow your own internal guidance and always, always, always follow that, because nobody else can teach you or tell you the right thing for you. We are each so different, and each of us has a different path. And so when we trust that inner guidance and we trust that feeling and we trust that process, we see that our path starts to illuminate, and that's exactly where we need to be. But at that point, I didn't even care if UC Santa Barbara didn't have the major I wanted. I didn't care that they didn't have everything that I had hoped in terms of the academic programs, but I just trusted my gut, trusted that feeling. So I did the math and got really serious once I was back home. And I sat down and I realized I needed 41 transferable units, and I needed to do it in that year. Otherwise, I would stay home for another year longer. And I knew that for my own mental health, that would probably, and for my mom's and for my family's, it probably would not be best. And so, though I knew coming home would be challenging, I would be returning after a year of freedom to a home with many rules and, many different, a stepfather who had a pretty significant temper and just some challenges. I was willing to do it, and it really was my driving force to reach my goal. And so, despite a really trying and difficult year, because I had that goal in mind, and because I learned from my mistakes at San Francisco State, I learned what not to do. And that's the thing. Every mistake we make is a teacher. It teaches us how we want to move forward and what we want to do in the future. And sometimes we have to learn mistakes several times for them to really, really sink in. I'm a perfect example of that. But when we can recognize our failures, not as failures, but as teachers, then I think it's really useful. And that's really what helped me to get through that year and to get on top of my stuff and realize that, okay, if I want to end up here, I have to do X, Y, and Z. So I ended up ultimately transferring to UC Santa Barbara the following fall, which was my junior year of college. And I started at UCSB, and it was everything I'd hoped for. But keeping up with classes was still extremely difficult for me. It was as though I was in like fight or flight. If I wasn't in fight or flight, if I didn't have something pressing like a deadline tomorrow, or at the end of the day, it was very difficult to get anything done, no matter how hard I tried. Even daily adult responsibilities, paying parking tickets, or just taking care of health insurance or going to the doctor, all of that just felt incredibly challenging. And I looked around at my friends and realized that they weren't experiencing that. They were on top of their stuff and didn't have those same experiences that I did. So I had started to hear about ADHD and started to have some suspicions that I might have ADHD myself. But based on all of the messaging around me and the folks around me and what I'd heard about ADHD, I felt bad about thinking about that about myself for several reasons. One, I thought that people would think that I was making it up. Two, because at that time I didn't want to identify as disabled. I just wanted to fit into the norm. And that's one thing that is privileged about ADHD, is that it is an invisible disability. So I could mask, I could hide it, and that's not always the case, right? So there's privilege inherently within that. So I grappled with that for a long time and figuring out, like, I think I have ADHD. There's definitely something that's not traditional about me, but I didn't feel like I could go seek support for it. And so I sludged through the last 2 years of school, 2+. I took a couple classes after June of my senior year. And I didn't do super well, but I finished. And looking back, I desperately wish that I would have known about my diagnosis earlier on. And I wish I would have taken the measures that would have been beneficial to me. I wish I would have known that had I gone to seek help, there would be supports and services on campus that would support me, that would give me accommodations that would be helpful for me to thrive and succeed. Had I known about the resources and accommodations, however, I honestly don't think at that time I would have utilized them because of my own internalized ableism that I had, my own internalized thoughts about myself that I have to do it myself. I have to do it without help. And if I don't, then I'm weak. And if I don't, then there's something wrong with me. And so had I even been diagnosed, then I don't know that I would have taken up the supports that were available. And I want to urge all of you that no matter where you end up, wherever you decide to go, in whatever spaces you decide to exist within, asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. I'm going to say that one more time. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of strength. We're going to go through our lives, and there's not a single person that exists on this earth that can do it all themselves. And the second we start to feel comfortable asking for help, seeking the support that we need, we realize, oh, the support is available to me and it does help, and I'm not alone, and I don't have to go through this alone. And you don't, none of you do, none of us do, nobody does. And once we realize that, I feel like we will start to build our communities even greater, because that's just the truth of the reality. So it wasn't until I started graduate school at UCSB 3 years later, after I graduated, to earn my master's degree in education and my special education teaching credential, that I finally went to a psychologist. At that point, it was unbearable. I could not get anything done, and I had a lot to get done. And I would sit in front of the computer and I would know all the things I had to do, and it would just be swirling around, and I didn't know where to begin. I didn't know how to lasso the things I needed to do. I didn't have the, the working memory to help me to set up my tasks and structure them. And so at that point, it was kind of this, you either are going to finish this program or you're not. And if you want to finish, you better go seek help. And that was kind of the place I was at. And so I went in, and I was so nervous. For some reason, I was nervous that the doctor was going to judge me. I was nervous they were going to think I was lying. I was nervous they were going to think I just wanted an Adderall prescription. And I went in there and I was like, I'm just going to be honest, and whatever happens, happens. So I went through and I told the doctor my history, the psychologist, and he asked a lot of questions about my childhood, my background, a whole bunch of stuff. And he ended our session with telling me and informing me that I had a clear-cut case of ADHD. There was no doubt in his mind that I had it, and he was surprised that I'd gone so far without being diagnosed, which of course is more common for women because of the masking and the way that it presents. But that was a shock to me. And I was both shocked and what you even mean the hyperactive part? What does this mean for me? So I was equally as shocked as I was finally at peace, knowing that there was a reason and a name for why I felt so long like I didn't fit in and couldn't do things that my peers could do so naturally and easily. So growing up, I was always acutely aware that the way that I engaged in life, especially with school, was different than many of my peers. And I remember my mom making comments about my traits and characteristics in my terribly messy room and disorganization, and wondering where it came from, because it sure wasn't like her, who is a Virgo, very orderly, organized, focused, and has everything figured out and all our ducks in a row. So finding out about my ADHD diagnosis, or as the TikTok star Connor DeWolf has coined it, dopamine, attention, variability, executive dysfunction, DAVE, which he argues is a more reasonable or accurate description or title name for ADHD. But learning about it freed me. It really did. It freed me. It finally allowed me to understand myself, or started to allow me to start to understand myself on a whole new level. I had to start over with understanding who I was. And even then, I wasn't informed or educated about the supports or accommodations I could receive at school, even though the diagnosis came from UC Santa Barbara through their student health. Still wasn't informed that I could get accommodations or that there was anything available to disabled students on campus. And again, I deeply wish I would have known about them, but even at that time, I don't know if I would have reached out and utilized those services. And again, I want to urge all of you, if you're on the fence, get the supports and services you need, whatever they may be. If you don't have to use them, don't use them. But if they're available to you, take them. And so, yeah, I went from there struggling with navigating the side effects of medication, Adderall, which didn't feel great. The doctor said, here's your bottle of Adderall and here are your sleeping pills. Have a nice day. And that was essentially it. And I remember I started taking Adderall. It made me feel really crummy. I already had chronic migraines, and I started getting more migraines as a result, and just didn't make me feel good, made me lose weight, and just made me feel kind of like not myself. But I saw the function of using it when needed, for sure. So again, I wish back then I'd known that asking for help is a sign of strength and not a sign of weakness. I wish I would have known that getting accommodations for my disability wasn't cheating, it was my right. I wish I would have known that being neurodiverse and having a disability was not a negative thing that I should keep to myself, keep tucked under that rug that was just for me to know, but rather a feature of my identity that made me unique, diverse, and honestly pretty awesome. I love my ADHD now, which has not always been the case, but I can evaluate the times when I take medication to manage symptoms and who I am on medication versus who I am without it. And I much prefer the person I am without it, though again, I see the function of using it when the times require it. But I didn't learn to love all of those pieces of me until my second time around in graduate school. And much can be attributed to my exposure and understanding of disability studies and understanding of disability as a difference and something that allows us to be diverse and beautiful and allows us to, create the fabric of our society in a way that's interesting and unique and different. And we need all sorts of minds and bodies and souls. And without that, then what would be the point, right? So despite some of our disabilities presenting us with really substantial challenges, and some for sure more than others, and some compounded by intersectional identities that unnecessarily marginalize different folks, there's still so much beauty that comes from disability that is so untapped at this point in time, because folks with disabilities up until this point have been so oppressed. Our voices have been shoved under the rug, not prioritized. Decisions have been made about us without us. And it's time to move forward to harness the resources we have and to allow us to, build our community and rise up and to just own it. So I spent 8 years as an inclusive special education teacher, teaching my students all of these qualities about themselves. I knew that innately about disability. I knew my students were beautiful, amazing, incredible, had so much to offer. I taught them that, how badass they were, how uniquely brilliant and integral they were to society. But for me, I still kept my diagnosis hidden. I didn't want the parents of the kids I was teaching to judge me and think that I couldn't teach their children. All these internalized ableist notions that I had back then, which was about 10 years ago when I started teaching. And then I decided to go back to school. I couldn't sit in the system anymore and watch how broken our education system was, how poorly it did at serving students with disabilities particularly, but all students really, especially students from historically marginalized backgrounds. And so I decided I would go back to school, I would earn my PhD and see if there was something else that could be done. And during that time, so I went to UCLA and Cal State LA's joint doctoral program for special education. I was last second getting my application in, and I just felt it was right. Again, trusted that gut intuition and felt that was the right path for me. So during that time, I was exposed to disability studies during my program, and I grappled with the ableism embedded within our educational system, embedded within my former teaching practices, the practices that was taught in my credential program, and the internalized ableism that made me feel shame and guilt and wrong about being disabled. The things that prevented me from asking for help for so many years, for accepting the supports that would have been really beneficial to me. And now I serve as the academic administrator for disability studies, which is literally my dream role. I couldn't ask for more. I teach our disability studies courses here at UCLA. I get to support student research. I get to do research myself, and I get to help to grow our program because it is such an emerging field. We're working on disability studies programming right now through our initiative, Disability Studies Inclusion Labs, which I'll drop a link in the chat in a little bit. And through our inclusion labs, we are trying to create really dynamic didactic experiences that connect our community, our broad community, with our student community, with our faculty, to have these rich, important conversations around disability and diversity that will hopefully start to build our community capacity for change and for understanding disability differently. So I know we all have different disability stories. We all have different stories. We all have different paths. There's no one right path. You know, wherever you go, we tend to, as humans, have the tendency to look around and compare ourselves to everyone around us. And that is probably the most dangerous thing we can do, because we're not supposed to be like anyone else around us. So I want to encourage you all to get involved. If you don't end up at UCLA, get involved wherever you go. UCLA has a disabled student union that is really incredible. The students there are awesome. They're powerhouses. They're working on tons of advocacy efforts to get students at UCLA more supports and more services, and a cultural center. And we have the disability studies program. We have a minor right now. We are working really hard to figure out if we can grow that into a major. And we also have other opportunities on campus to support the disabled community. We have our Center for Accessible Education on campus, where you'll go to get all of your accommodations that you need for your classes, and actually so much more. It's really actually quite amazing how many disability spaces we have at UCLA. And one thing we're doing right now is working on trying to lasso them all together and, you know, come together to do the work that we're all so passionate about doing. So I just want to congratulate you all for being where you are right now, for being here, for being on this webinar, for, you know, for just following your path. Whatever your path looks like is right. Along the way, you're going to learn so many lessons and so many beautiful things that are both hard and amazing and wonderful and scary and challenging, and all of the emotions that come along with it. And I want to remind you all that you are stronger than you think, and you have community to back you. And asking for help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. And through the CCCP and through the universities that you end up at, there are lots of supports that are for you. And so utilize them, take up what is rightfully yours, take up space, and just own it. Be who you are, thrive, and just enjoy the ride. because it really is a beautiful ride, no matter how many bumps, how many waves, how many high tides, how many low tides. When we can learn to get the support we need and ride those waves, it's a very beautiful journey when we look back. So I want to thank you all for allowing me to share this space with you today. I want to thank you all for everything that you're doing and who you are. I want to thank CCCP and all of those who put this on, because I'm really grateful that students have the opportunity to be here and have resources. And if anybody has any questions, I'm here to answer any of those now.
First, I just want to say thank you so much, Dr. Salone. That you are amazing. That was amazing. I was just glued to the screen. But thank you so much. And I don't want to take up any of your time. We do want to, like Dr. Salone said, open this up for Q&A. So I do see some questions that are in the chat. So if you want to put your questions in the chat, you can go ahead. And you can also raise your hand if you'd like, but we'll be doing this for about 10 minutes or so. So let me see the first one. So the first one I see is from Shelby. So Shelby said, at what point in your academic career did you decide to study disabilities and why?
Excellent question. I have a younger sister who has cerebral palsy and an intellectual disability. And through high school, I helped out with her. She was my first sibling. I have 6 younger siblings, and she was the first. She was like my everything. She is my everything. And my other siblings are too, of course. So I helped coach her soccer teams. And then once I got to once I moved back home for that year and went to the community college, I got a job at a an ABA agency. And I loved working with kids, and I love working with kids with disabilities. And so I got a job at an ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis agency, which was awful. Honestly, it was awful. It was awful. They trained me to go in and work with students who were 3 and 4 years old. And if they started crying and they had autism, and if they started crying, then they told me, restrain them, get behind them, restrain them until they stop crying. And I looked at the lady training me, and I was like, I hear you, and I will never do that. I will never do that. So I lasted about 4 months at that place, and it just didn't feel right. Didn't sit well with me. But I knew I loved the children. I just didn't love the guidelines and the structure of that agency and many behavioral therapy agencies. Some are okay, and there's a lot to question within that construct. And so I left there. And then when I moved to Santa Barbara, I worked with a couple of students with autism, and I volunteered for Special Olympics, and I volunteered to coach a Little League for kids with disabilities. And I just loved it. I loved it. It lit me up. It was like what ignited that passion inside of me. But I didn't think that was going to be my career. I didn't think that would at all be my career. I had thought maybe I'll go into marketing, international business, something like that. And it was interesting because along the way, people would always ask, are you going to be a teacher? Are you going to be a teacher? And I'd always say, no, I'm not going to be a teacher. But then after I graduated with my bachelor's, I ended up working. I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no idea, 0 idea. Everyone thinks you have to know, but the secret is nobody really knows. Very few people really, really, really know. And they may look like they know, but they still don't always know. So I didn't know. And I was either going to go be a manager at a retail store, or I guess I was going to go work as an aide at the local district in Santa Barbara and make $17 an hour and be in a role that I didn't need a bachelor's degree for. I ended up choosing that option. And that actually really allowed me to see the educational system, allowed me to work with an inclusion specialist, which I fell in love with that role, fell in love with, I did social skills groups and I fell in love with that. And I still didn't think that I was going to go into teaching. But at this point, I was more like, maybe I will. So when I moved, I actually took a year, moved home for another year in between then, and that was a tough time. And during that time, I did not work with kids, and I did like random catering events and random like energy drink, like guerrilla marketing for energy drinks, like stupid stuff like that, which I actually really enjoyed. It was fun, but it didn't light me up the same way that working with kids, especially kids with disabilities, lit me up. And so through that experience and having those different experiences, it showed me what was my passion and what was not. And so then I decided to go and apply and go back to school and get my credential. And so, yeah, I didn't have it all figured out. I hadn't, even up until the last second before I got my credential, I was still unclear if that was really the right choice or was it just the choice I knew. But if I really sat with myself and reflected on what lights me up, what lit me up was being in schools, working with kids, working with students, and having fun with them. And so, yeah, so it's kind of a roundabout answer to your question, but I hope that answers it. Yeah, of course.
Thank you. You're getting lots of love.
Yeah, and thank you, everybody.
Jill, did you? I don't know if you just
Yeah. So again, as Ariel shared, and full disclosure, behind the scenes, we've been kind of texting and checking in with one another, and everyone is saying the same things about how engaging and how thankful we are for you sharing your narrative and your story with us, and just doing it with such kindness and such grace. But one of the questions that we had was, for me particularly, is what can students, or how can students advocate for themselves more in these spaces, right? Knowing from your experience of knowing institutional and having that institutional knowledge, what are some tips and advice that you might have for students for advocating for themselves? And then Santi, I see your hand. I'll get to you next.
Yeah, this is the thing, right? I wish students with disabilities didn't have to advocate for themselves so much. I wish that we had structures in place. I wish that would offer universal access. I wish all professors would implement universal design for learning and, access for all, and just mitigate all of the hoops we always have to jump through, because those hoops are disabling. But unfortunately, the way things are at this very precise moment in time, it is essential that as a student with a disability, that you do advocate for yourself. And that's where community is huge, because if you go at it alone, it's a lot harder than if you do it collectively. And that's what our students at UCLA have done. They've set up the Disabled Student Union. They work collectively with our Center for Accessible Education. They have weekly meetings with our director of our Center for Accessible Education, where they voice student concerns, etc. But if you're a new student coming in with a disability, sign up with CAE, the Center for Accessible Education, right away. Don't wait, just do it. Just do it as like one of your list of to-dos, just do it. And if you need help, ask. If you need help going through that process, I'm going to put my email in the chat. You're welcome to reach out to me. I know it can be hard, and it can be overwhelming. And so sometimes it just helps to reach out and ask. And again, it's not a sign of strength. It's not a sign of weakness. So there's my email if you do need help navigating through that. But go to CAE, ask, do the proper paperwork, request your accommodations. And if the accommodations don't support you and aren't actually aligned with the things that you need to thrive, then you can appeal them. And again, I wish it weren't the case. I wish you could just come in and be like, these are the things I absolutely need. And they would be like, do, there, you got it. But sometimes it's a longer process, but don't worry. So just keep going back if you're not getting what you need. If there are things that you need that will help you thrive. And then again, I want to encourage everyone to just get involved with the disability community. Like, get involved, because what you're going through, other people have oftentimes gone through too, like the logistical stuff on campus with getting your access needs met, etc. And so when we band together to go forward with those efforts, it's a lot stronger and more powerful. And then you also have support backing you. And so those are the two recommendations I have for getting what you need. And then just being open and honest, I would say, is one of the most liberating things I have found personally. And it's not the same for everyone. But what I have found is when I'm able to say, I have ADHD, so it would really help me if blank, blank, blank. And I've recently, just in the last few years, started doing that. It is so liberating. And people do, like, they will do that. They will support you oftentimes. And if they don't, they need a reminder, and they're learning too. With professors, if you're not getting the things you need, just be persistent. And if you're tired and don't have the energy to be persistent, you can reach out to the Disabled Student Union to support you through that too. And again, there's power in numbers. We're stronger together. So they can help when our energy is down, and maybe you have a chronic illness or a disability that doesn't allow you the capacity to have enough energy to go through this. You have other supports on campus that will help.
Thank you so much. Santi, you had a question.
Yes, thank you. Oh my goodness. Hopefully I can get to this question. That was so powerful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Just make me reflect in the ways in which I, have practiced ableism, and definitely, feeling that, of course, it's a learning process, and, that part of being able to share as well. I think that was really powerful too. My question is, I think, a lot of times, and I think this happened also with some of the students that we have worked with, or that I have worked with, that they do want to assert their identity in terms of disability, but at the same time, they're afraid of the way in which they're going to be evaluated by other people and talked about by other people. And what I often have seen, and this is definitely something that I think I do myself, is that I try to make up for what is a perceived, or has been mentioned as a weakness, right? So we try to make up for that. And how do we, become kinder to ourselves? I guess that's yeah.
It's a deeply powerful question. It brings tears to my eyes too, because I'm reflecting on all the times that I also tried to make up for it, and cope and cover and go the extra mile and do so much people pleasing to overcompensate. And it is an evolution and an internal process that takes some time, right? Like, it doesn't happen overnight. And these are things we've been taught everywhere we look, everywhere we go. We've been taught that we should be normal or above average, right? Whatever that means, right? Whatever that means. And each of us, I'm sure, are above average in a handful of different things. It's like, what are we measuring? But in terms of how do we be kinder to ourselves, really what helped me to start to self-reflect, and this again is just my own personal journey, it was a combination of educating myself and learning about and assessing my own internalized ableism, and learning about why I had the feelings and reactions and responses that I did. And then meditation, and kind of a journey to self-actualization, honestly, through a meditation and self-reflection, and just sitting with myself, sitting with the discomfort of my past, of trauma, of pain, and growing through it, and realizing that, for me, like, realizing I am perfectly perfect as I am, and each one of us are too. Each one of us is perfectly perfect as we are, and our life will be an evolution, and we're going to evolve throughout our life, and we're not going to be the same person tomorrow as we will be in 10 years. And that's the point, right? That's the point. And we can't expect ourselves to have it all figured out. because literally nobody does. We each have our different pieces of the puzzle, and we can learn so much from each other too, and so much from sharing with one another. But to be kinder to myself, and I don't have it all figured out. I'm still very mean to myself sometimes. And I try to recognize that and identify that and say, okay, no, you're diminishing your self-worth here, and you don't need to do that. And that's due to this, and stop it. Right. And
I definitely feel new to myself today. So thank you for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
We have time for one more question. I want to be mindful and respectful of your time. So Jeffrey, you had a question?
Yes, I did. Hi, it was nice meeting you. I enjoyed your story. My question was, let's say we're, concurrently in the process of, getting our disabilities under control.
Mm-hmm.
Is there advice or any skills or things that we can do as students to like make our learning experience more impactful? Or do you have any like tips for anything we can do to study better? Or I don't know if this was the right place to ask that kind of question.
That's a great question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a great question. And we're also different and benefit from different strategies. And so the first thing is understanding yourself and knowing what works for you, what doesn't work for you. And again, it's going to be trial and error, right? Because that's just how we figure things out oftentimes. But for me, what's helped me a lot, and what I've seen other students benefit from too, is implementing those systems and structures that are going to support those areas where you recognize you need a little more support. So for example, for me, this is just like a very vanilla answer here, but like just very basic answer. Like I always have a million tabs open. I can never find anything, and then it's overwhelming, and then I get overwhelmed and I don't know what I was working on. So I always have a million tabs open. And I found this Chrome extension called Toby, highly recommend it. It's called Toby Chrome extension, and it allows you to sort all your tabs into like a nicely organized like home screen in folders. And so anything you're working on can be categorized into these. So if you have classes and you want your Canvas for the class, you want your syllabus for the class, and you want like links to different readings or other things you've explored for the class in one folder, you can set it up that way. It's amazing. It seriously changed my life. Highly recommend that. And then for me personally with ADHD, sometimes it's really hard for my working memory to remember what I was working on. So if I have a lot of tasks that I need to be working on, what I recently started doing was taking a whiteboard and writing. And these are things I used to do with students, but never thought to do with myself. But I started writing what I was working on the whiteboard. So if I'm working on a part of a proposal, I write the part of the proposal on the whiteboard, and I literally have it next to me and next to my computer, so that when I'm working, if I get distracted, I don't go off too far down a different rabbit hole, because that whiteboard is there telling me what it is I'm supposed to be queuing into. So that has also been a game changer for me. And it seems so simple, and I wish I would have figured that out earlier, but we live and we learn. So that was also really helpful. Study groups can be really helpful if you're like somebody that benefits from having accountability, having study groups and just going to them and engaging in them, because I know it can be really easy to avoid those types of interactions. I would encourage you to engage in those interactions, because it will enhance your learning, and it'll also help keep you accountable if that's something that you need. And then go to office hours and meet with your professors. A lot of students are shy away from doing that, but I can tell you, like, if you have nothing to say, you don't need to go. But if you have questions, there is no silly question. And if you have a question, it's likely that other folks have the same question. And yeah, utilize those office hours to get to know your professors. That'll really help too if you are wanting to disclose your disability in a more private, or like share your story or not, with a professor, that can be a good time to do it too. It's also nice because then once you cultivate those relationships later on, and this is a little bit of a tangent, sorry, but later on, if you need letters of recommendation, cultivating those relationships with the faculty that you work with is really important too. And yeah, just I'd start by identifying the areas in which are challenging that you tend to like always like drop the ball with or need support with, and then figuring out like Google like what will help with this or that. And there's so many different strategies, but those few that I just shared for me personally have been really helpful. And then, you know, if you're part of a disability community, share with each other what works and what doesn't, and then just have like, let's normalize those conversations about access and about bypass strategies. And another game changer for me was Voice Dream Reader, where I could read in grad school. I used it to listen to every single research article I had to listen to, and if I needed to really attend to it, I would listen and watch it or listen and read it. But Voice Dream Reader is an app that you can download any PDF into, and it'll read it aloud for you. You can highlight it, you can engage with it, and it's really awesome. So it's called Voice Dream Reader, and they also have Voice Dream Writer. And it's like $15, but I swear to you, it's like the best $15 I have ever spent in my entire life. And another game changer is Grammarly. Grammarly changed my life. I don't know about all of you, but writing emails can sometimes take me a long time, especially I'm like, I always make mistakes. So let me read it, and then let me read it again. And then, is that quite right? I don't know. So Grammarly, download that extension. There's a free version. There's also a paid for version. Again, like some of the best money I've ever spent was on Grammarly. Yeah. So those things can really just take a huge load off, right? You can be riding your bike or commuting to school and listening to your readings, right? You can be walking to class up the big hill, up Jan steps or up Bruin Walk, and be listening to your readings, and that can be really helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm furiously taking notes over here just for my own studies and my own work and whatnot. But thank you so much for your time and your energy and your knowledge, and for sharing with us, sharing your story and your narrative with us. It has been incredibly impactful, particularly as we build this community within CCP for transfer students, particularly, and all the intersections that we bring. So thank you, Dr. Solano. We really appreciate you, and we're looking forward to being in community and partnership with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, and doing some labs together or whatever might come. Great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for allowing me to share this space with you. And I'm just really grateful, and I look forward to more.
Yes, and we're sending you our condolences to you and your family right now.
Thank you. Yes, it's been a very hard week, but we are getting through it as we always do, right?
Yeah, so thank you, and for making the time to be with us during all of that.
Of course.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Well, I don't know about y'all, but I'm feeling super empowered and just motivated and grateful and just all of the things right now. I'm trying to put it into words how I'm feeling. So again, just want to say thank you to Dr. Salone and her word and her wisdom. And I'm going to turn it over to Ariel right now. And we've got some raffle stuff to get to and whatnot. So.
All right, thank you. And again, thank you so much, Dr. Salone. And just to echo what Joel had been saying, I also feel very empowered. Everyone's been feeling empowered. That was just amazing. So thank you so much. I'm going to get our raffle set up, but I'm gonna also just hand it off right now to Eurydia. If you could just kind of briefly announce and explain the raffle while I get our screen shared. Sorry.
Yeah, so this is actually my first time doing a raffle, but I believe we're just going to put everyone's names in, and then we're going to choose, the wheel's going to choose someone, and I'll be DMing you and asking you, congratulating you, and asking you for an email. That way we can get in touch with you and get you your prize. So I hope everyone's excited. I'm excited.
All right. So everyone's been entered. I'm going to spin. All right.
Woo! Yay, Fariha. I'm not sure if I said that right. Oh, someone wasn't entered. I'm sorry, Brooke. Let's see.
Oh no, we missed someone.
Yay. Oh.
All right. I'm going to stop share because my thing is going a little slow.
So I think Ariel may be having a little bit of technical difficulties. And Brooke, we're so sorry that we missed you. We will be having a second and third raffle later on this afternoon. So we'll make sure that everyone is included. So sorry about that. But we will make sure that everyone is included for that second time around to an opportunity to win. And as Iridia said, she's going to be DMing you for your address so that we can make sure that we get those goodies to you. Just as a note in terms of the raffle prizes, because we're almost done with all of our webinars for the summer. Can't believe that's actually a thing, but we're heading to the last couple ones, and we'll be mailing all of everyone's, all of the winners for across the different raffles during the webinars. We'll be mailing all of those goodies to everyone at the same time. So basically we'll be wait until the end of August to expect something from us, but we will be getting it to you all.
Jewel?
Yes.
So according to the rules, if we meet someone, we have to automatically give them something. Not just kidding. I actually feel so empowered by this, and it was such a gift to me that I just want to offer a gift card to Brooke, just since we had the name out, just because I feel so good right now, and I just feel like sharing that goodness with everyone. So,
thanks, Santi. Yeah, so we will make sure that folks get things. So we're excited. At this point, we are going to as you may all know, there's lots of stuff happening behind the scenes during webinars. So we're trying to multitask here. But at this point, we are on a break. So we have our break that's going on right now from 12 to 12:30. So feel free to do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself, grab a bite to eat, go take a walk, go get outside, get some air, do what you need to do to care for yourself. CCP will be staying in the room, we'll be playing some music, answering questions that anyone may have, and we'll start right back up at 12:30. So as soon as you're ready to come back into the space, again, we just want to say thank you to everyone for joining us for this first session. We are really jazzed and really excited about just the community and the space we're building here today. So yes, just really grateful, really feeling really empowered and really blessed, and we hope you're feeling the same way. And we're looking forward to seeing you all at 12:30 to start our second session, where we will have our resource panel from a number of different community partners, a couple of community colleges, as well as our Center for Accessible Education at UCLA. And then we'll be jumping into our panel with some really dope humans doing amazing work at the community college, at UCLA and beyond. And so hearing about their experiences. So yeah, we're jumping into our break now, and we're really excited. So we'll be here hanging out. And do what you need to do. You can feel free to stay on and mute yourself, or mute your Zoom, or turn off your camera and do what you need to do in the background, or feel free to log out and log back in at 12, right around 12:30. So we're really excited. So thanks for being with us this morning, everyone. And again, we'll be here hanging out, answering questions and whatnot.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the break.